Kramer, and welcome to another segment of The Compass, an investigative news program where everything goes under the spotlight. Now, over the years, there have been certain topics that you just can't trust the mainstream media with. Abortion is surely one of them. Whenever the mass media deals with the subject, more often than not, it is a terribly biased and one-sided affair. We know why this is, of course. Numerous studies have shown that those in the media tend to be mainly of the left, and are for the most part secular, delving deeply into the feminist worldview. Thus, it is not surprising that a pro-death slant will be found in much of the mass media coverage of the issue. Consider a recent article posted in the Australian online newspaper Green Left, headlined, "Queensland locked in abortion stalemate." The recent charges laid against a young Cairns couple for procuring an abortion have shown that Queensland women have absolutely no right to privacy to make decisions to end a pregnancy. From this statement alone, it appears that the Cairns writer, Miss Angela Walker, leans towards a pro-death slant with regards to the issue. Nevertheless, her conclusion sums up her position.
If this issue were affecting middle-aged white males, then no doubt legislation would be swiftly changed.
There are two terms that can illustrate the media's view on abortion through Ms. Walker's article: feminist and, for the most part, secular. Nevertheless, it seems this has become quite a trend in the media of late. Consider Miss Adele Horan's article on October 9 in the WA Today.
Time to stop dragging our heels on abortion law reform.
The article referred to the situation of Tegan Leach, the 19-year-old to face trial in Queensland for procuring her own abortion. Ms. Horan, a Sydney Morning Herald columnist and reporter, wrote that, "The decision to have an abortion can be easy or agonising, but what is criminal is not abortion. It is to punish people for their belief that a child is a huge responsibility and that only they can know when they are ready to be the best possible parents." I'm sorry, Ms. Horan, but what is abortion is criminal. At least, that is what the Catholic ethical teachings place upon the issue. The Compendium of the Catholic Church, written by Pope Benedict XVI, is a social doctrine of Catholicism. In Part 3, Section 2, Chapter 2, it is stated, page 470, "The fifth commandment forbids as gravely contrary to the moral law. Direct abortion, willed as an end as means, as well as cooperation in it. Attached to this sin is the penalty of excommunication, because from the moment of his or her conception, the human being must be absolutely respected and protected in his integrity." In the respective articles from both Ms. Horan and Ms. Walker, the media has failed to account for the Catholic ethical teachings on abortion. Thus, they mention nothing of the reverence of life, nor the fact that abortion is a form of murder. The pro-death slant taken by both writers only contradicts the Catholic Church's belief that all life is sacred. The ethics of all Catholics out there have been virtually defied, in fact, completely unaccounted for. As a Catholic myself, the media has led me into the secular view on abortion. Perhaps my ethics are led in two directions, one secular, through the media's writings, the other religious, vindicated through the Catholic faith. Choosing between one's faith and what is written in the mainstream media is purely outlandish and would never occurred if the media had ensured a balanced and non-biased approach within their writing on the issue in the first place. As we move on to our next segment, we still focus on the issue of abortion. However, this time, we'll examine the currently intense debate between both pro- and anti-abortion activists in Queensland. Of course, under the Queensland Criminal Code, abortion is a criminal offence. But just how is the media portraying the government's position on the issue? Strap yourselves in, viewers. You're in for a rollercoaster ride. Here's the story. Abortion and Queensland. They're two words that simply haven't mixed over recent decades. There are the pro-abortion activists and the anti-abortion activists. And in between lies a century-old law that has sparked a stirring debate to change Queensland's criminal code. The Queensland law on abortion was adopted in 1899 as a means of protecting women from unsafe abortions. The law is contained in sections 224 and 282 of the Criminal Code. The law prohibits abortion unless a mother's life is in immediate danger from the continuation of the pregnancy. Recently, a significant story emerged in the media regarding the very tragic case of a teenager facing 7 years jail for allegedly procuring her own abortion using the smuggled drug RU486. The case has led the media into frenzy in considering the Queensland Government's position on amendments to the Queensland's Criminal Code affecting abortion practices. Consider recent articles posted in Queensland's Courier Mail and the nationally renowned newspaper The Australian. On August 24, journalist Jamie Walker wrote an article in The Australian titled
Abortion statute on cards for repeal.
The article suggested that Queensland officials would consider the possibility that
a statute banning women from procuring their own miscarriage would be repealed as part of a review of the state's century-old abortion law.
The article further implied that the Queensland government would be prepared to reconsider the abortion law contained under Section 225 of the Criminal Code.
Queensland health officials have said the government would be prepared to consider repealing Section 225.
On September 14, The Australian posted another article on the same issue examined by Jamie Walker. Natasha Beatty's article, titled
Anna Bligh stays out of tragic abortion case,
suggested that the Queensland Premier had ruled out intervening in the Tegan Simone abortion trial. The information provided contrasted to that viewable in the preceding article, written just 3 weeks earlier. Beatty's article stated that
the state government had no power to intervene in the case.
Just 1 day after Natasha's article was published, the Courier Mail revealed that
almost 2/3 of Queenslanders support the decriminalisation of abortion. The poll of 800 voters, conducted exclusively for the Courier Mail, found 64% believed abortion should be legalised, while 31% disagreed.
After the results from the poll were presented to the Queensland Health Department, it was said that the government did not comment. Ironically, the poll from the Courier Mail was released just days after the ABC re-aired their Queensland abortion prosecution segment. Host Damien Carrick interviewed University Professor Caroline DaCosta, who supported change to legislation.
So we would like to see, as medical practitioners, the legislation be looked at, preferably by the Law Reform Commission, and recommendations made to the government in order to have the legislation updated or indeed decriminalised and moved into the health regulations.
As evidenced, the media have made major contradictions regarding the Queensland's government's position on the legality of abortion. The first source from Walker's article in The Australian suggested that
Queensland health officials have said the government would be prepared to consider repealing Section 225.
This view changed just 3 weeks later when the same newspaper implied that
the state government had no power to intervene in the case.
A day on, and the media once again changed their view. Currently, the media tells us that the government refuses to comment on the issue. And so, the media has been unethical in the way in which they've presented this issue. Since it is the government who addresses the laws, how can the public understand what is right and wrong if the media portrays an inconsistent, presumptuous government opinion? Laws set forth the rules which govern a particular activity. If the media cannot make the overarching opinions on these laws clear, it is very hard for the public to recognise the values of what is right and wrong, particularly with regards to ambiguous issues like abortion. What's more, well, once again, the media has failed to account for the Catholic perspective on the issue. The Catholic Church supports current Queensland laws on abortion. This can be drawn back to Pope John Paul II's interview in the book Crossing the Threshold of Hope. Here he quoted,
If a person's right to life is violated at the moment in which he is first conceived in his mother's womb, an indirect blow is struck also at the whole of the moral order. Every human life is a part of God's loving plan.
This is not what young Tegan Leach thought. And yet, even though Miss Leach has broken the law, we have professors from the ABC who think otherwise.
Right, the woman at the centre of this case has been doubly victimised.
Well, if anything, it's the Catholic Church who have been victimised here, setting forth a possible trend for things to come in the coverage of this issue. Yes, an amazing story there. It just goes to show you, the media and abortion, they simply do not mix. Whenever the media takes a secular approach on the issue, the Catholic ethical teachings are left unaccounted for. As for the ethics of Catholics, well, one is led on what I term a roller coaster. Through secular writings from the media on abortion, Catholics are led in all directions, some of which do not encompass their faith. I guess that's why we often dub abortion the issue of dividing lines. There are so many different views on abortion. Ultimately, for us Christians, the only view that is right, that is probably acceptable, is our own faith. That's all for tonight's program. I hope to see you next week for another episode of The Compass. I'm Patrick Kramer. Good night.